All right, I'm in my file, sketch.js on the left, and I don't need to change files, so I'm gonna close this. By the number 7, there's a vertical line, and I can pull on that to close it. Don't worry if you can't, it's no big deal. I just wanted more room on my screen. Let's take a look at what looks familiar. This is a code along, so feel free to follow along with me. And just say anything that looks familiar to you. We've learned how to make our own variables. On line 2, above the function setup, you start by giving the variable a name. You do that by using the keyword let. Then you give the variable a name. In the function setup, you need to initialize or give it a starting value. So I wrote the name of my variable, and then I put an equal sign, which means I'm going to assign it this value, and I gave it the value of 30. Finally, you have to use the variable. So inside my circle, I wrote my variable name dot. And now let's see what it looks like when I run it. Okay, so I have a circle on the screen that's yellow, and the size is whatever I've stored in dot. And I can change that. Maybe I'll make it 130 and run it. So just by changing the value up here in the setup, it's storing it in dot, and then I could use it in the circle. Let's put that back to 30. So go ahead and change the value of the variable that you see here. Try different numbers and run it, and make sure that you can change the size of it. And then when you're done, put it back to 30. So let's review. We've made a variable by declaring it on line 2, giving it a value inside the function setup, and then using it somewhere inside our code. But I don't think dot is the greatest name, because I didn't really know what dot was going to do until I went down and saw where I used it in the code. So I think instead, maybe a name like dot size. A good variable name. Notice that I made the S capitalized. This is called camel casing, and it makes your code easier to read. So whenever you smush two words together, capitalize the first letter of the next word. Good variable name should give you a clue as to what it is. So I'll go ahead. Now if I just leave it like this, I'm going to cause problems. So I need to go ahead and change dot size. All right, so if I changed it now and ran it, nothing's going to happen because I haven't changed it everywhere. And now if I run it, it can be really big. Okay, let's make this yellow right here. Right now it's hard-coded, it's always going to be yellow. Let's turn this into a variable. I'm just going to put dot size back to 30, and you can do the same. Let's slide up to the top, and you're going to notice that I started us off with another variable called hue. So I'm going to uncomment it by erasing the backslashes. Hue means color, so we're going to have a variable that's going to control the color. So step 1 was declare it, give it a name, and step 2 is to initialize the variable. So I'm going to write hue, and I'm going to assign it a new value. So we've seen that a variable can hold a number, but it can also hold a string, which is inside quotes, characters. It could be letters, it could be numbers. But if you write certain words, like think the colors of the rainbow, basic colors, P5 will recognize that. And there's a whole list of web colors that is linked in our lesson today. So I'll just write blue. Now, if I hit run, it's not going to turn blue because I have to use it. Step 3 is to use it. I've gave it a name, I've given it a value, but now it's time to use it. So inside fill, and I can get rid of these quotes too, I'm just going to write the variable name hue. Oh, make sure you spell it correctly. And it's just this value that can change. So now if I run it, it's blue. You could try changing this to just some basic like red, green, and remember the full list is going to be in today's lesson. And when you're done, set it back to yellow. Okay, let's try something fun. Now that we have a variable for hue and a variable for dot size that can change, right now we're only changing them by going into setup and changing them here. But we can use, there's another function we can use called function mouse pressed. So we can make it change when we press on the screen. Function mouse pressed is kind of like when the sprite is clicked in Scratch, except that means you can only have to click on the object or on that circle. Function mouse pressed is when you click anywhere in that gray area. So right now it says the dot will be 50 and hue will be green. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna run it and then I'm gonna press on the screen. Ah, cool. The green changed. Wait a minute. Dot started at 30, but it should have gotten a little bit bigger. I didn't notice that it got bigger. Maybe I'll write 150 and let's see. It was too close. No, that's not changing size at all. Do you see what's happening here? I've created a variable called dot size. I gave it a starting value of 30. I remembered to use it, but then when I go down into the mouse press, I set dot to 150 and it's not changing to 150 when I press on the gray area. If you may have noticed that I changed the name of the variable to dot size, but then I didn't do it over here. And so it didn't know what dot was. Now let's see if it's working. It should work. Run and tap on the screen. Yes. So go ahead and make sure that you can tap on the screen and change your variables.